Welcome to the life you crave. Simple and sustainable weight loss for women who have better things to do than diet. I'm your host, Leah Pinelli. I help ambitious, badass women stop overeating, overworking, and overgiving to lose weight from a place of love. I'll help you simplify weight loss, end your overwhelm, and create the life you crave. If you like what you hear, please like and subscribe to this podcast. Let's get started.
Did you know there are actually 3 different types of overeaters? Knowing your type is the key to stopping. You could take my free What Type of Overeater Are You quiz at leahpinelli.com/quiz to find your type and your solution in under just 5 minutes. Head on over to leahpinelli.com/quiz so that you can solve this problem stat. On today's episode, I am going to give you the 4 steps to creating the life that you crave unapologetically. So you may or may not know my story, but I am a woman on a mission to create the life that I crave unapologetically. And part of that craving is to then guide other women to also create the lives that they crave unapologetically. I went from a career that I found to be deeply gratifying, but not necessarily what I wanted to be doing with my life. I found myself dissatisfied and discontent in that career that I had invested so much money and time and energy into in the form of graduate school, master's degree, and then 15 years of dedicated practice in that career. I found myself quite frustrated in my marriage after having a baby and having a full-time career and experiencing the common struggles of marriage when you introduce a child. I found myself dissatisfied in so many areas of my life. And I went on a journey. And by the way, this was not some like overnight transformation. It was, as we say in Spanish, poco a poco. I went little by little to create the life that I crave. And now today, when I look at my life, I find it unrecognizable to the life that I had before. Before, I was in a body that I did not feel at home in. I was 30 pounds heavier. I did not have a lot of physical strength. I was very stressed out. I was very overworked. I was very overwhelmed with taking care of a small child and being in a leadership position and having a staff under me and having a very time-demanding job, a lot of inflexibility in my work and, lots of late nights and always early mornings. And I was just exhausted. My clothes didn't fit. I was stressed. I was overwhelmed. And I didn't have the time freedom. I didn't have the financial freedom. And I definitely did not have the body self-confidence that I yearned for, that I really wanted. Now, today, I live a life that is the opposite of that. I've been 30 pounds lighter for the last 5 or 6 years now. I live at my happy weight with minimal effort and maximal pleasure. I work for myself. I work from home, which is the thing I've always wanted to do. And I make my own schedule. I take my son to school and I pick him up, and I can truly have the autonomy that I craved. And I'm making an even bigger impact in the work that I'm currently doing now than I ever made before. And I'm well compensated. So, and I'm really, really happily married. I should mention. But the point that I'm sharing, the reason I'm sharing this with you is because creating the life you crave truly is a decision. It's just a decision to, and I'm going to emphasize, unapologetically create that life that you crave. And today I'm going to give you the 4 steps that I used and the 4 steps that you can use to create the life that you crave unapologetically. So the first thing I want to share with you is the guiding question that I use every day in every way to create the life that I crave unapologetically. And that question was given to me by one of my all-time most impactful, powerful coaches that I've ever had in my life, Felicia Searcy. You can check her out. I will put her link in the show notes. But Felicia taught me to ask myself the question, what would I love? What would I love? And that sounds like a simple question, but when you really tap into the energy behind that question, if you allow yourself to sit down, maybe take some deep breaths and allow the answer to that question to surface up, to rise up from deep within you, not from your brain, but to rise up from deep, deep within you, you may be surprised at how you feel when you answer that question. Because there's no way to answer the question, what would I love, without conjuring up the feeling of love. And when you feel love, when you're asking that question, you're going to get an answer that is, first of all, totally divine. But second of all, it is love. Like the answer is going to be love. Now, I know I'm getting a bit esoteric here, so I'll stop. But this question is so important because it cannot mislead you. It cannot misguide you. If you're actually asking the question and allowing the answer to surface from a place of love, you will never be led astray. So, what does this have to do with creating the life you crave? Well, if you're going to create the life you crave, you have to ask yourself the question, what would I love? And the reason I like this question better than what do I want is because when I ask the question, what do I want? And there's nothing wrong with asking that question. It's a great question too. And in fact, it's a question that I don't think women ask themselves enough and allow themselves to answer honestly. But sometimes what we want is what we think we should want. But what we would love when you ask yourself that question and allow the answer to bubble up to the surface, when you ask yourself that question, you don't necessarily get caught up in what you think you should want, right? It really, truly can come from deep within. So what would I really love? And when I ask women this question, when it comes to, say, food and weight, their relationship with food and weight, I usually get one of three answers, if not all three. The first answer that I usually get is, I would love to be at peace with food, right? Can you identify with that? I would just love to be at peace with food. And to me, that speaks so much to how not at peace so many of us are with food. I wasn't at peace with food until about 5-6 years ago. And I have been ever since then. And it's the greatest gift because it's given me my mental real estate back to focus on my career and making a bigger impact and my family. And what would I love, right? It gives me more time to ponder that question. The second answer that I often get from women is that they just don't want to think about it. They want to be normal, quote unquote, with food, and they don't want to have to think about it. They want to just be, right, with food and not have it take up so much of that mental real estate again. And the third answer I get, and I think that this is probably everyone's answer, even when they don't say it, is they really want to feel confident and sexy in their own skin, in their clothes, in their bodies. They want to feel good in their bodies. But here is where we get tripped up. When you think to yourself, I want to feel at peace with food, I want to not have to think about it too much, and I want to feel confident and sexy again, I want you just to notice if there's a part of you. And now for some of you, this might be a really loud part, and for some it might be a whisper. But there's a part of you that's thinking, that's not possible. It's impossible. It's impossible to be at peace with food, to not think about it, and to feel confident and sexy in my body, in my skin. Now, here's where I would challenge you. Is it possible for someone else? Now, most of you would say, well, yes, Leah, because we see you, and you guys know that I am at peace with food. I don't think about it nearly to the frequency that I've thought about it for the first 4 decades of my life. And I do feel quite confident and sexy in the skin that I'm in. Always room for improvement, but I do feel quite confident and sexy in the skin that I'm in. So you might say, okay, well, it might be possible for some people, Leah, like you, or like Beyonce, who was, just born blessed, or Jennifer Lopez. My God, right? So you might be like, okay, it's possible for them. but it's not possible for me. And a lot of times we'll even pull in a bunch of evidence, right? We'll be like, well, if I, maybe you'll say, so if I had a personal trainer who came to my house and I had like Jennifer Lopez in it, and I had a chef and I had this, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot of truth to that. But for just regular everyday people, I'm standing right here telling you that it's possible because I live this every single day. And my clients live this every single day, or at least they are on the journey to living this every single day. So it is possible, but there is a belief that so many of us have, which is, well, it's possible for them, it's not possible for me. So this brings me to the 4 steps that you have to take in order to create the life you crave, and how you might be blocking yourself, how you might be getting in your own way. So we're going to dive into those steps, and we're going to loop back to the impossibility of you being at peace with food and not thinking about it and feeling confident and sexy. So the first thing you need in order to create the life you crave, the first step is you have to actually have clarity about what that life looks like, right? We cannot create something that we don't have a picture of, at least some kind of sketch or outline. So this is where you have to ask yourself the question, what would I love? And then allow the answer to rise up. And oftentimes the answer will come in the form of images in your brain, right? You start to picture a life that you love. I know for me, I would love to own a Tesla. So I might picture my hands on the steering wheel of my Tesla, right? I can feel this leather or whatever it is on the steering wheel, right? I can see it. I can feel it kicking into gear the car, and I can feel it going from 0 to 60 on the freeway and just feeling exhilarated and having fun driving it. So having clarity in the form of pictures and images is quite helpful to that first step, right? Of just, what is it that I actually would love? What do I crave? What would I love in my life? Maybe it's having a romantic relationship that feels really loving and supportive. Maybe it's having a great sex life, right? Maybe it's being at peace with food, right? Or feeling confident and sexy in your own skin. You want to have clarity around what it is that the life you crave looks like. That's the first step. Okay, we got that. Boom, step 1. Step 2, and this is going to loop us back to what we were talking about just a few minutes ago, which is you have to have belief. Belief, faith. You must have faith that it is possible for you. Not just that it's possible for J-Lo, but it's possible for you. Now, why? Why is that so important? The truth of the matter is that your brain will never, ever, ever stick with and move toward, with any real efficiency or gumption, anything that your brain thinks is not possible. Because your brain is hardwired to conserve energy. It's the 3rd point on the motivational triad. So if you're hardwired to conserve energy, what that means then is that if your brain thinks it's not possible on any level, your brain will not invest time and energy in it to the level that you need to invest time and energy in order to actually make that transformation, because your brain thinks it's a waste of energy because it's never going to happen in the first place. So that's why it is so imperative that you work on your belief. Now, when I say work on your belief, I literally mean that you have to work on believing the thought that this is possible for you too. Because I promise you, sister, that if you don't think it's possible for you, you are wasting your time even trying. So you might wonder, okay, how do I work on my beliefs? Again, that is definitely outside the scope of my podcast for me to teach that to you here. But what I can share with you is that believing is a matter of deciding. It's deciding to believe that it's possible for you. And here's the thing, there's no harm in believing it. Because what's the worst that could happen? It turns out it's not possible for you, but you believed it anyway? Like, who cares? Why does it matter? It doesn't matter, right? It's not like you have to go get on, tonight's Channel 4 news and like announce it to everybody that you believe this thing, and then you're going to be mortified and humiliated that it like wasn't really possible and everybody knew but you. No, like that's not what's going to happen. You can just secretly decide that it's possible for you and that there's no harm in believing that. And then every time your brain starts to suggest otherwise, that it's not possible for you, you just remind your brain, oh, no, brain. Remember, we decided this is possible for me and we're going to proceed as such. I know it sounds a little kooky to have that little conversation inside your brain, but kooky's not always a bad thing. So step 1, clarity. Step 2, belief. Step 3, conviction. By conviction, what I mean is you have to be convicted. You have to be determined to see it through. So when I say determined to see it through, what I'm talking about is that you're not going to give up, that you're going to do whatever it takes. Now, let me say very quickly here, when I say do whatever it takes, I do not mean do things that are in any way promoting like deprivation or not feeling good, because if you know me and you know my work, pleasure is a non-negotiable. So it has to feel good. It has to be sustainable. But what I mean by conviction is that you're not going to stop until you figure it out, right? It's never too late to figure it out. And so if you have not cracked the code yet on your relationship with food, on your relationship with your body, it's possible to crack the code, and you're not going to stop until you've cracked that M or F-er, right? You're not going to stop until you've figured it out. And what I want to tell you is that it is 100% possible, and in fact, a non-negotiable, to do it with pleasure and sustainability. So that's good news. So step 1 is clarity. Step 2 is belief. Step 3 is you got to get convicted. And step 4 is you need to get in community. You've got to be in a supportive community, whether that's a coach or a mentor or a community of like-minded folks. And the reason that this is so imperative is because it is hard to be convicted, to have conviction. It is hard to have conviction when you're doing it all alone. It's not that it's impossible, but it's so much easier when you have other people around you, lifting you up, supporting you. It is so much easier. And not to mention, it's way more fun. Like I said on the last episode, yes, it is actually true that it can be fun to go through these transformations, to become someone new, to create the life you crave. It can be scary. It can be uncomfortable, but it's scary and uncomfortable in the same way that any kind of growth is scary and uncomfortable, right? It feels like growing. It feels like pushing your comfort zone as opposed to being scary and uncomfortable in some kind of threatening way. So what I hope that you take from this episode today is I truly hope, if there's one thing you take from this episode, I hope you will go and you will sit down somewhere quiet at some point in the next 24 hours and take a few deep breaths and ask yourself, what would I love? And see what surfaces for you. See what comes to the surface. And then take yourself through those 4 steps of really gaining clarity on what comes to the surface, believing that it's possible for you, becoming convicted, having conviction that you won't stop until you have figured this out for yourself, and then commit to getting in community, getting the support that you need, because you are damn worth it. I am always here to help you with that. You can head over to leahpinelli.com and you can book a free call with me where we can discuss what getting support from me directly looks like. And in the meantime, I hope you head over to leahpinelli.com/quiz and grab my free quiz that will teach you in under 5 minutes what kind of overeater you are, what type of overeater you are, because that will help you so tremendously to get those 3 things that everybody who's listening probably wants, which is peace with food, not having to think about it, and feeling so good, so confident, and so sexy in your own skin. Ciao.
You've been listening to The Life You Crave. I lost 30 pounds years ago without dieting, willpower, or deprivation. I'm on a mission to help other women, including you, do the same. You can book a free weight loss strategy session with me over at leahpinelli.com. That's LIAPINELLI.com. See you on our next call or on the next episode. And remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment on iTunes.